Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, as usual. Anyway, folks, what's going on? Welcome aboard, everybody. We've got a full house. Welcome aboard on the chat with El Señor AVQ, El Señor Rodnen from Brooklyn, New York. In the house as well is the one and only Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. In the house is Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. And of course, the one and only Bruce Pollard from Kingwood, Texas. We also have Lee Grant from Montgomery County, Texas. And in the house as well is Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. We have Lee Hayes from Atascocita, Kingwood. We have Patrick Meow Magner from Houston, Texas. And of course, going down the scroll, if I missed you, please forgive me. You know how it gets some time. I think I've got those that I have listed thus far. Anyway, folks, we got a good show for you today. Title of the show today, and it's what I have posted at Daily Coast today. And let me throw it up on the screen. It's going to be Schumer exposes Democratic timidity. Crockett dings both Fetterman and Schumer justifiably, and Brazile castigates Dems, which she should. That is what we're going to talk about. You know, I got it complete in time that I could actually post it on the screen instead of doing it on the fly and updating Daily Coast and updating all the other places at the same time. Brother Ray is in the house. Ray is in the house. He said, roar. Let's roar. That's what we'll do. We are going to roar. Anyway, I want to start kind of quickly here, and I want to start with what I did this morning on Schumer. I had a longer one on Social Security. I think I'll leave that one for tomorrow that I did this morning on KPFT. I cleaned it up real nice. I spent so much time, though, that I could only get it down to about 19 minutes or so. So I may go ahead and leave that one. Alistair Waters is in the house today. She says, hey, y'all. She's just listening today. Leave the Bearcat says, wasn't it Schumer that exposed himself and the Dems? Yes, he did. This time, Lee Bearcat, I've got to say yes. So listen to what I said this morning. So I am consistent. So here we go, and then we'll continue with whatever. Wait. Before we go there, I better read what Rudnin put on the screen. He said, Washington Post, after judge blocks Aliens Enemies Act, White House claims nearly 300 already deported. Trump quietly invoked the Aliens Enemies Act of 1798 on Friday for the first time since World War II to speed the deportation of alleged gang members. A federal judge stopped him on Saturday. One plaintiff in the lawsuit, a tattoo artist identified as JGG to protect his safety, said he had fled Venezuela after being tortured by Venezuelan police and feared he would be killed if deported. But he said he did not have a chance to plead his case before a judge. He said an immigration officer wrongly pegged him as a gang member because he had tattoos. Again, let me tell you something. This is all for show. If you notice, all the cameras were set up perfectly in El Salvador so that they could get good pictures. But I tell you what was the most amazing thing about the pictures. You see that big entry that all those buses came in, painted the right colors into something that looked like a concentration camp. Let me first tell you, I am from that part of the world. Let me tell you about our buses. We don't have buses painted that way. We don't have our internment centers set up that way in Latin America. That is a perfectly orchestrated thing that was paid for by the United States government to look like something Americans will understand. That is not how we do stuff in Latin America. I saw how they had you notice they had the title of on the front of the building, a big building, and all the buses that are colored correctly in gray going into that area. I looked at that and I'm like, Madre mia, the new right wing president of El Salvador made a deal with Trump. They got those things built quickly. I mean, it's cheap to build down there in El Salvador. They got it built quickly, had all the buses painted correctly. Go look up Diablo Rojo, Panama, and you see what those kinds of buses generally look like in Panama. Diablo Rojo, and it's all over Central America that you see. That's how we do those buses. Just to let you know, guys, it was all for TV, made for America, with the sensibilities of America in the way they set up those concentration camps. All right, Radney asked me to put this one out on the screen, so let me go ahead and get it onto the screen for the brother. And he says, to live. There we go. All right, folks. So, anyhow, let's continue reading from you, very smart people of mine. Paul Fleming says this flaw under the radar. This flew under the radar, but Trump says his administration won't enforce an anti-money laundering law that requires corporations to disclose information on who really owns shell companies to the Treasury. Drain the swamp? Nope. Build up the swamp. I heard that one, but I didn't report it. Thank you for doing so. What else have we got here before I continue? Paul Fleming says Doge signed an agreement with Louis Deloy to slash 10,000 jobs from the already understaffed USPS. The USPS is the nation's lifeline, ensuring delivery to every corner of the country. We cannot allow it to be dismantled, sold off, and handed over to billionaires. As you see, what they try to do is they try to corrupt government entities in such a manner that when you do that, people say, oh, government doesn't work. That's not going to happen. I am looking at audio and I think I'm seeing it transmitted AVQ. So please go ahead and make sure that there isn't something wrong there. But anyhow, let's go ahead. Oh, I see what you're talking about. I got it. I got it. Lee Grant says Dems are in disarray. You don't want to be labeled as the pro-violent illegal alien. Look, I agree with you that Dems are in disarray. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So here's my answer to that from this morning and Chuck Schumer. Let's take it there and then we'll go to the other side. But it doesn't even only start with a Schumer. It starts with not laying the foundation, and for a good reason why the Democratic Party right now is at an all-time low, and justifiably so, because there's too much timidity and too little fight. Under ideal conditions, I would say Schumer did the right thing, but we are in extraordinary conditions, and there's a lot in these confounded CR. When Congress cannot get their you-know-what together, they have to keep the government open by issuing what's called a CR, a continuing resolution. And when they issue these continuing resolutions, the ideal continuing resolution is what's called a clean CR, which means we will just assume nothing changed and we are going to keep spending at the same levels for the same things that we've been spending over the last fiscal year. And that's what
everybody should have just worked towards, because at that point, you're not talking ideology, you're not talking adding anything, etc. But what Howard said is true. Once you have the government closed, then at that point, the executives get more power to decide what is essential and what is non-essential. Because the essential is what has to continue being paid for. The non-essential goes on furlough. And given the vindictive thug that our current president is, what would then occur is that he would call essential and non-essential things that do maximum damage to his enemies, meaning blue states, meaning blue counties, etc. But the thing about it is, while there are blue states and blue counties, etc., within all these blue states and these blue counties and these blue states live red people, meaning people that are MAGA, people that are conservatives, etc. You cannot hurt people on a particular area without hurting your own. So there would be some built-in limits to the damage that he can do if the government is closed. And then, given that it should be advertised that once the government is closed, current executive, if the Democrats did what they're supposed to do, which they generally don't do, they would be able to assign all the blame where it belongs, the executive, which is the president. But the reason we are in this pickle in the first place is that the fact that Schumer accepts responsibility for saying the reason he voted for the CR is so that Democrats don't get blamed for the government closure is the problem. I want you to think about that. Schumer voluntarily accepted that if the government closes, it would be his problem. It would be the Democrats' problem. In January, since the 20th, when Trump was installed, in all of February, the groundwork should have been led on every channel, every news channel, every internet channel, every social media channel, every email list, pointing out that the Republicans will shut the government down with the types of policies they have in the CR bills that they're working on. That should have been laid out so that nobody would doubt that if the Republicans don't negotiate a CR, that a shutdown would occur on their watch caused by them. But all we heard from the Democrats on these issues were crickets, nothing. So therefore, now that it's right upon us, we even have Schumer saying the reason we aren't going to shut down the government. Those words came out of his mouth. So therefore, every commercial, every ad that comes on TV after a shutdown would simply print Schumer saying the reason why we shut down the government. It's marketing malpractice for Schumer to ever associate the word shutdown and democratic. Shutdown and democratic should never be uttered from his mouth. It should have always been, if Republicans don't do this, they would have been shutting down the government. But again, you can make ads now with the things that came out of his mouth. Malpractice. But is it really malpractice? No. Remember, 2 days prior, Schumer was given all the reasons why he was supporting not voting for the bill, which means the Republicans were going to shut down the government for not allowing particular negotiations on the bill. And Schumer agreed. But guess what happened in the interim, folks? Donald Trump's tariffs started to go haywire and the market started to crash. And all these billionaires, including Elon Musk lost near $100 billion. That just shows you that the market is a casino because nothing got created or destroyed, but he lost $100 billion. It just shows you that our economic system is a scam, that somebody could lose $100 billion in a few days. It's a scam. It's money that don't really exist. But we'll talk economics another day. But now what you think Wall Street did? Because, Wall Street owns Schumer. The reason Schumer doesn't pass certain people's bill, the reason we didn't get the public option to the Obamacare was because of Schumer and all these other Democratic Congress people, not Republicans on this case. Democrats are the ones who made healthcare under Obamacare less than it could be. I mean, it's better than anything the Republicans were willing to offer, but it was substandard because it was a gift to insurance companies, anyhow. But Wall Street got to Schumer in less than 2 days and ordered him. And look, I don't have the evidence, and I tell you guys when I'm talking factually and when I'm talking surmisedly. And I am assuming that when you do what's called reductio ad absurdum, which means any other reason would be absurd. The market is falling. It is falling like a rocket, like a dead rock, like a rocket moving in the wrong direction. And Schumer comes out hurriedly. I don't know if you guys saw what happened. Schumer was all in for not supporting the CR. And then suddenly he starts to make the rounds. He does the Chris Hayes show, and he does CNN, and he does others saying, I've decided to support the vote, even though I said no before. And he runs to all the channels to start telling them why he's going to support it. And then Donald Trump says, thank you, Schumer. You did the right thing. Schumer doesn't understand what that looked like when Donald Trump says you did the right thing. It showed that he capitulated. It showed that he was now a Trump stew. It showed that he was like, Trump wins again, even as most people don't want it. Trump wins again.
Yes, Trump wins again. And he wins because, you know what? It's funny. Trump with all this bolster and, he's a paper tiger. But you know what? We've proven with Trump that those other men are even more paper tigers than Trump is. And you know who are the strong ones? The women, the Elizabeth Warrens, the Ocasio-Cortez, the Ilhan Omar, the Ayala Presley. All these are strong women that are willing to take on the fight. Maybe it's time for all these young punks to be gone, and let's elevate the women to do the job, because they have more balls, to put it bluntly, than the guys who actually have them hanging. Look, I am so disgusted, and Lee the Bearcat nails it. Lee the Bearcat, my Republican friend from Austin, nails it, and he says, "Let me find it because I was reading it, and I just want to say, Neil, you nailed it, brother, you nailed it. Why don't Dems have an answer for current administration? NBC, CNN polls show that they are the lowest in years. Could it be continually focusing on the wrong things? Yes, it's their continual capitulation. It's their continued look. I've talked. I wrote that piece last week about Democrats going everywhere, not disregarding any voter. Every voter is a progressive voter. Every single American voter that's in the middle class and the poor. They are our voters. They are our voters. We share the same values. We value families. We value work. We value income. We value businesses, having your own. We value those things. The right only talks about valuing those things. But when they always say, show me your budget and I will tell you your values. And if you look at a Democratic budget versus a Republican budget, values are actually quickly seen. Values are quickly seen when you actually do that. And I saw that on a program today, Lee, meaning if Dems move middle, they might win again. No, Dems do not. Dems moving to the middle is a losing proposition for Democrats. I don't know what the middle means. Cornell Belcher came on and he said it when they did a poll, and in the Gallup poll it said Americans don't want extremes. They want the Dems to move to the middle. Okay, let's leave it at that. That's good. I agree with that. The poll said that. But then you ask Americans what they want, Do you want childcare? Yes, that's considered to the left. Do you want minimum wage increased? Yes, they call that a left proposition. Do you want childcare? Yes, they call that a left proposition. Okay. Do you want to be able to swim in your lakes? Do you want to be able to fish in your rivers? Yes, they call that a left proposition. Do you want to have renewable energy so that your skies are not polluted with pollutants that gives you cancer? Yes, they call that a left value. So the thing about it is what the great marketing on the right is to make sure that the left is some crazy sounding thing with transgender and so they have to associate the left with some crazy stuff so that the actual things that the people on the left stand for, right, the actual things that the people on the left stand for goes unheard. So no, lead a beer cat. The things that we on the left want, policies, is what most Americans want. But what we have allowed ourselves to do is to have Republicans center on these issues like abortion, which we are on the right side of that as well, uh, transgender issues and gay issues and all those issues that we're on the right side of, but they conflate it. It is like somebody who called into my show and said, "Well, do you want a girl fighting with a guy that's transgender?" And right then, I had one of our own listeners call in and says, "I have a transgender kid, and my kid is not trying to be fighting with women or doing sports with women. It's a false reality that they concentrate many of the limited minded people on so that they don't support the things that actually benefit them." Egberto just says, "Oh, okay, no, 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 no. That's not what I may have. If I said that, Steigen, I am completely off base and wrong. When I say crazy stuff, I mean if I said that, I am completely wrong. That's not what I mean. I mean, they want to keep us on social stuff that really is of that doesn't reflect our totality. I apologize for that coming out as crazy stuff completely because that's not you. All of you know where I stand on these issues. So I'm completely wrong in the way I said that. So I give you my most sincere apologies. Anyhow, so it is important that we see that. Let's see. Rodney says, "You'll pardon me, but the way the right wing bubble talks about trans issue integrity of women's sports and bathrooms is a distraction from the real issues are included actual trans issue bullying, discrimination, homelessness, especially." I agree 100%, and that is what one of my trans a parent of a trans person came on my KPFT show and said, and I read that off for them. I read that off for the guy that called in. So I'm saying though, we cannot allow that to happen. Okay. So that's where we're at. Steigen, Bergen Greek, give me a call if and let me know if there's anything specific that I need to say to correct on you know on what I said. You can call us on the line live here if you will as well because we want to make sure to be right. All right, let's see what else we got here. If there's anything else in here that I must talk about, let's see. Pay attention to this. Musk is trying to make our air traffic control system dependent on him by integrating his equipment, which has gone through security, who has not gone through security and risk management review. It's corruption and it's dangerous. Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Absolutely so. All right, let's see what else I need to talk about. Okay, let me go ahead and continue now. I gave you guys a piece that I did on Schumer. I want to follow that piece up with with Brazil, because Brazil has been a Democratic insider establishment person for the longest time. And when you see somebody like her sour on the party, you know it is real. So I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side. You know how you know the Democratic Party is in trouble? One of the most devout Democrats, former head of the DNC, and much more, Donna Brazile, finally has lost it with the Democratic Party. The thing about it is, there is a whole lot of hope. There is a whole lot of hope within the party if they will unshackle themselves from, well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and listen to Donna, and then we'll take it on the other side. I've got a lot to say about that.
Let's start with you, Donna, the Democrat. Quite a week, Chuck Schumer's support created basically massive blowback.
Massive. Look, the congressional Republicans have a strategy. They want to pass the Trump agenda, no matter how reckless it is. They want to, pass make sure all of his cabinet people are secured, and later on his tax cuts. They have a strategy. We know it. It's radical, it's reckless, it's producing all kind of uncertainty with the markets, Main Street, Wall Street upset. But where's the Democratic strategy? We knew March 4th was the State of the Nation address. And we didn't know it wasn't red, pink, green. I don't care. I love rainbows. But we didn't have a strategy then, and we didn't have a strategy going into the CR. It should have been vote no in the House, and vote no in the Senate on cloture, and vote no on the CR. Why? Because it hurts people, because it destroys our economy, and because it cedes congressional power to the executive. We didn't have a strategy, and now people are upset.
I want to bring something else up. Rachel Bade, who is a contributor here and obviously at Politico, had a really great point. I thought, kind of off your point there, Reince. The Trump administration must be loving this. Stocks are tanking because of tariffs. Polling suggests the public is turning on Doge, and yet the biggest story in Washington right now is that Hakeem Jeffries is dodging questions about whether Chuck Schumer should be leader, something I've never seen in my tenure.
Again, it's a missed opportunity, but I also think it's also, we should just state the obvious. The leadership that's going to emerge during this period is not going to be the Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill. It's going to be the American people, the veterans who marched on Bismarck, the veterans who got out on the mall this past week. It's going to be those teachers who are getting cut, those firefighters, those ranchers, those engineers, those scientists. They are not just federal workers. They are American citizens.
Donna, how do you see going forward with that, with all these other things that are happening now? Do you see the Democrats having an opportunity here?
Well, first of all, the Democrats in the minority, and they have to be very strategic when they pick their fights and how they pick their fights. This is not about being deranged. It's about making sure there's some certainty in our economy. But it's also the Democrats got to continue to say what we stand for. And it's not just Democrats in Washington. It's Democrats, it's governors, it's mayors, it's everybody. They need to have one sheet of music.
Okay, what is that message?
That
Simply
message,
put, and who is the messenger again?
Well, the messenger is going to come. But the message is we're standing up fighting for working people, working families, and we will protect Medicaid. We will protect the vulnerable and the poorest in our society, as well as businesses and others.
So yes, the Democratic Party as a body should have known that March 4th is coming and have a real response to what they knew was going to be a litany of lies, a litany of misinformation, etc. And they should have come with a unified front and done many other things. When we had Representative Al Green standing up and calling out the president in real time with a truth, unlike when Republicans have called out the Democratic president with apparently no penalty, when he did it and they moved him out of the office, one of the things that Democrats could have done to show solidarity is they all should have walked out in concert with Al Green. And yes, the message wouldn't have been, or the narrative would not have been, Al Green left
as some misfit leaving the House. It would have been Democrats were so infuriated with the litany of lies that they could not stay any longer to listen to a lying president. Democrats were not prepared. They should have been prepared. They should have been ready to show strength, if not strength that they can put into votes, strength as a body that would work together. They didn't do that. As Donna pointed out, there will not, the leadership that will emerge out of this fiasco is likely not going to be the old leadership that we've been used to for decades. Leadership that really needs to go and turn into one from people that are willing to work for the average American citizens, for people who are willing to go out there and hit the pavement. Because I tell you what, the reason Schumer went ahead and changed his tone in less than 2 days is likely Wall Street got to him and said, you will not allow Republicans to shut this government down because you will hurt us financially. And since we own you, you cannot do that. That is my take. I'm not saying I have any specific evidence of that. I'm saying that is simply the modus operandi. But Sister Brazile had a good statement, and it's something that we've been preaching for a very long time. For a very long time, we've been saying it is the grassroots that's going to make things happen. It is you out there. It is your frustration turned into action. It is those who are aggrieved by what Donald Trump and his sycophants and Doge are doing to us all. That is what's going to make the difference. You are much more than 50%. And it's you who are going to have to invest into institutions that are going to make the change. And it's not going to be the Democratic Party as it stands today. It is going to be the Democratic Party of tomorrow. And if not the Democratic Party of tomorrow, an entity that galvanizes 50 plus by a bunch percent of the American population. So, folks, let me tell you, it's on all of us to get it done. We're doing our part, but you have to do your part to support the organizations, to support the networks, to support the independent journalists, and all of these folks who are out there saying, we have got to get the job done. Because if you're waiting on Schumer or the leadership in Congress, it's not going to happen, because they're not beholden to you, even as they depend on your vote. They're beholden to their financiers. Even as you finance them with small donations, they only listen to the ones with big donors. So put your money where it really gets work done, folks. Locally, independent media, and elsewhere. And that is how the change is going to be made. We have to do it collectively, organizationally, externally, from those who are owned by our oligarchy.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
You know how you know the Democratic?
Okay, folks. So I want to let's see. Steigen Bergen Greek says we need Democrats who will stand up to the king. Democrats willing to risk jail or firing squad. I don't think there are any right now. I do think we have some progressives that are quite ready for that kind of a job. We just have to get them to decide that they are going to buck the system and take the party over. I have another one. I want you to listen to Representative Jasmine Crocket on this one, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Fetterman continues to be a disappointment. Let me explain something. You know, there's an issue with his voters in Pennsylvania. Yes, too many of them are marginally turning to the MAGA feeling, and it has to do with the working class adoption of Donald Trump as being the savior of the working class because, yes, of the neglect of the Democratic Party in many ways, but not because of something that Donald Trump or Republicans have done for these people at all. But instead of using his platform to teach, to instruct, to inform, and also to work towards moving the Democratic Party to the populism of progressivism to do what it needs to do for the working class, instead, he appeases his constituency, meaning the MAGA portion of his constituency, in order to attract them on false premises. But this one beats a cake. You know, Representative Crockett and a few other Congress people did a video. It was a funny video for an influencer to show Democrats fighting. And he took exception to that, talking about how silly it looked. Well, you know, you don't do that with Representative Jasmine Crocket because she's not going to just take things sitting down. She's going to let you know some truths. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Last week, you were one of those who participated in a Choose Your Fighter video. It got some criticism online, including Democratic Senator John Fetterman called it bizarre and reportedly mocked it in the Senate hallway. I will say that your punching looked better than some of your colleagues. Fetterman has been criticizing your party for undignified antics and a sad cavalcade of cell phones during the president's address to Congress. What's your response to Senator Fetterman?
He's not the one to talk about anything. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't seemingly want to own a suit. I'm not really sure. But I don't show up in hoodies when I'm going on the floor. And so the idea that you would say that we could not have a moment in which an influencer asked us to do this. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you and tell you that when she asked me to jump, I said, did you ask my older colleagues to do this? Because I feel like you're picking on me because you think that my needs are a little younger. And I did not know who all was in this particular trend whatsoever. And I think that it is important that people see that we're real people. And even if that means that there's a moment to laugh, that's okay, especially since it seems like we're doing more crying than anything. But just know that we were not on the House floor jumping around at all, whereas Senator Fetterman is consistently walking around the Senate chamber, and he is walking around in such a way that they literally had to change the rules in the Senate so that he could walk around that way. So I just don't think that he's necessarily the one to actually have an opinion about this.
Again, this is an issue. Democrats need to stop trying to be like Republican light or try to appease to MAGA on false pretenses. What they need to do is inform Americans, have enough respect for the intellect of people, whether rural, urban, ex-urban, suburban, I don't care. Have respect for their intellect and have respect that you can sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and talk to these people instead of just trying to appease them, which leaves them in the domain that they will listen to charlatanes like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and others. It takes effort. It takes work. It takes caring. It shows that you care about others if you don't just try to appease their most negative sensibilities, their inner demons, but you try to exercise them. You try to get rid of them by just engaging them and giving them some truths. Fetterman should try that. He knows better. But again, too many Democrats do one of two things: appease Wall Street or appease MAGA. And those are two things that are dangerous to the middle class and the poor. And it's dangerous to MAGA. MAGA just doesn't know that they're being screwed. Okay?
And that's why I talk about educating folks, right? Leader Bearcat says Fetterman actually sounds reasonable. He sounds reasonable to you, my brother. Why? Tell me what policy that he supports that the average Democrat does, that the progressive Democrats don't support. That is unreasonable. Let me hear it. You see, again, it's easy to throw out those words. Oh, you're left, you're this, you're that. When we go down to policy, which is what Republicans and conservatives and MAGA cannot speak about. Because when we talk about what policies Americans want, they want the policies of the left. Michael says, Egberto, it's a trick. What's reasonable to the alt-right is to troll the libs. Exactly. Exactly. They don't have any look. The alt-right has nothing to offer. They just throw these things out for you to waste your time with. It is like going back to our friend Brian. I can never say that name right, so forgive me as I bastardize your name, Seijen Berger Krieg. When they say that, when I made that mistake earlier out, they want to put you focus on their false realities. And if you're arguing about telling them how silly that is or how nonsensical it is, you are wasting time not educating the educatable, right? And that's what we have to spend our time on, educating the educatable. In other words, I don't try to, Eric Hayes, my buddy here, he can throw whatever he wants in the chat. We all know it's nonsense, so we don't waste a lot of time on it, right? But we work on things like the marginal propensity to consume of many, right? The marginal we talk about these things and we instruct folks. We instruct folks that household closing of Social Security offices under the auspices of Doge is a double whammy for the rural communities. Why? A rural community with a small population but with a big federal office, because we know red states and rural areas depend on government more so than anywhere else. Red states, rural areas, all these people are government dependents. So when Doge talks about limiting all these efficiencies in Social Security, first of all, it's not fixing efficiency; it is hurting people. So when that Social Security office closes in a rural area, that one person making $80,000 a year, compared to the woman working at McDonald's or the guy working at whatever the other places making $30,000, it's gonna make a difference within that community. So if you go ahead and for the educatable, notice I said for the educatable, for those who are willing to critically think, and there are a lot of people in these areas that will sit back, and if you go down, because I've spoken to them, if you go down and explain things to them, let them see, okay, it is like what I did with the guy who hated immigration. I had a guy in Starbucks, he hated immigration. And we sat down and talk. And I looked at him once and I looked him straight in the eye and I said, I want you to do me a favor. You're going to be in Social Security age right pretty soon. I want you to look up Social Security, undocumented workers, and the value of undocumented workers to Social Security. And then he accidentally realized that the undocumented workers actually extended the life of Social Security under its current funding plan. And his stuff is like, okay, I am for immigration now, but I want to do it the Republican way. He changed on a dime. There are some people who they don't work on empathy. They work on what affects them only. Very unlike Christianity that many of them speak about. But you know what? You hit them wherever you can. And it's the same way. If you go to some of these rural areas, you can actually point to these folks. Hey, if we close that office, that person that makes $60,000 will no longer go to your steak and ale, that one steak and nail in your town, that one Denny's in your town, that one whatever restaurant in your town that people who have more disposable income will go to, those businesses are no longer viable because what we have is a lot of minimum wage workers or farm workers in the field that can't afford those things. So you lose the 15 or 20% government jobs in your area, it will materially affect your economy that is unrecoverable. And they suddenly sit back and they think, oh my God, my mom has this store that sells this. My dad has this store that sells that. They realize how it permeates into their society. And while they're not doing it to be nice, they're doing it because they finally see how that silly policy that they decided to take doesn't really work and will actually hurt them. Imagine if you could get to that before the damage occurs. That's something Democrats aren't doing. Get out there in the rural areas. When they're throwing stones, and you put up an anchor, put up a shield, and then and let them see that you're willing to work for that vote. Egberto Willis, please read out. Lee, what's better? Concentration camps on U.S. soil and mass deportations without habeas corpus, or immigration reform by increasing funding for more social workers doing rapid vetting? Again, one of that AVQ is humane. The other one is animalistic. The other one is vicious. The other one shows a lack of humanity. All right. The other one shows a lack of humanity. And that's what Donald Trump has done to a lot of people. They have made a whole lot of people forget that they're human beings. And they actually gravitate towards that instinct, that animal instinct that those of us who are civilized have been leaving behind for quite some time. You know, it is like they can't see reality, right? I tell you some interesting things, right? It is like how Americans are so obsessed with Iran not getting the bomb because Iran is going to do this, Iran is going to do that, right? To which I say, well, you know, if you're going to tell Iran to not have a bomb, maybe Israel shouldn't have a bomb, maybe Saudi Arabia shouldn't have a bomb, maybe, you know, but first of all, you shouldn't be able to tell anybody that they can't have something that they deem necessary for their defense. But I want to also point out a few realities, right? The only country that we know has the balls to use a nuclear weapon to kill hundreds of thousands of people, it's only one country that has ever done it, and that's us. So when we talk about all these other countries that they're bad because they're building their nuclear bomb for themselves and all of that, Russia has the bomb, never used it. Great Britain has the bomb, never used it. France has the bomb, never used it. Israel has the bomb. They haven't used it, but it wouldn't put it past them. Brazil likely has the bomb, but they haven't used it. The only country on this planet that has used the bomb, the American people. The only country that has had the human rights violation in having genocide for hundreds of years in the form that we've had it, that's us. The only country that has had chattel slavery of the kind that we had, where we had some of the masters impregnate the slaves just to have more product, more machinery, if you will. Imagine that. Impregnate the slave to have more machinery and be able to treat your offspring as a slave working in the fields. When you talk about the instantiation of evil that we have done overtly, we should be more humble. We should be more humble in the way we talk about all these other countries we like to call savages. We like to call all these things. And it lends the fact, when you point a finger, whenever you point a finger you always find that four of them are pointing back. You see that? If I'm pointing, that thumb and these other fingers are pointing back. We should be very, very careful, very, very careful of when we attempt to criticize others. I got one last video that I want to play, and this one I think is only under 5 minutes. It's about 4 minutes. Let's go ahead and play that, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Possibly think, Senator Chuck Schumer possibly think that he knows more than 212 of 213 House Democrats, that he knows more than over 30 Democrats in the Senate to go ahead and support President Trump's policy on the recovery. Listen, let's be clear here. Or I shouldn't call it recovery. I should call it his policy on the continuation resolution. Here is the deal. First of all, let's go ahead and listen to Jasmine Crocket. Listen to how she puts it. But I have some more to add to it because we should remember that Chuck Schumer came out patently against this before he had a change of heart to support the cloture.
He's saying that the path that House Democrats wanted would have presented a worse consequence. Is he wrong?
He's absolutely wrong. I mean, look at the reality of the votes, right? I understand that the American people are frustrated. Please believe many of us did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the senators the importance of pushing back in this moment. And as you saw, we had all but one Democrat in the House that voted for this. So that's 212 Democrats in the House. And then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. And Jake, you and I both know that this administration could care less about whether or not they violate the law. We know that we've had to rely heavily upon the courts. And I want to say, as you're talking about the polling on my party, I want to say that it is the Democratic attorney generals and some governors that are standing up against this administration and bringing those lawsuits and winning every single time. They are losing in court. Could we do a better job of making sure that the American people know that we are winning in the courts? We probably could. But at the end of the day, it's still Democrats that are winning for the American people.
So Jasmine Crocket is correct. The only people holding up the country right now are the progressive Democrats. No doubt about it. They're the only one fighting to ensure that all those layoffs that are occurring, those illegal layoffs that are occurring, are challenged in court, that those policies within agencies are challenged in court. But I want to go a bit further than that, because you have got to ask yourself a very specific question. And this specific question goes as follows. What made Chuck Schumer, a seasoned politician, have a change of heart? And the only answer to that, the only logical answer to that, is that he's playing it up for Wall Street. And how do I make that assessment? Wall Street, as it craters, they want to ensure that nothing else hits the market. And we know what would happen if cloture was not attained and the Republicans were unable to hit the budget. We know that the stock market would continue its free fall. So he decided to support Wall Street over the will of the people. Nobody on mainstream media is making the connection. This is the guy that was against cloture like just about every single Democrat or any sensible thinking person who realized you don't give those powers in a continuing resolution to the President of the United States. Yes, it is time for him to go. To replace him by whom? I am not sure yet, but it's time for him to go.
It is absolutely time for him to go. And let me tell you something else, guys. The other thing that Chuck Schumer failed to say, and I think it's in this resolution that was slipped in, where this resolution makes it that it stays the same day or something like that, right? In other words, Uh, while the Congress should have the ability to stop Donald Trump from destroying the economy with tariffs, they've taken that off the table right now because they're saying every day is today. So they have 15 days between when they can act. So they're making sure that they can't act. They've given their power back to the president. So by letting these bills through, that's exactly what Chuck Schumer stood for. When he talks about a shutdown government would give the president more power, no. He's given the president more power, and the difference is that it is codified. It is codified now with the president having more power. I think we need to get rid of all those older Democrats that don't behave like our good friend Bernie Sanders, who actually is very young at heart in that he wants to ensure that all progressivity goes through the system. Okay, we're close to the end of the program. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to ask all of you who have the wherewithal to please support the program. There are many ways to support the program. The first way to support the program is you can become a Patreon, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. And I'm putting that on the screen right now, or rather in the chat, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. That is one way to support us. The other way to support us is to support our books. You can go get our books at politicsdoneright.com/books. There you can get any of the many books that I've written. But I tell you, the best bang for the buck to support this program and ensure that we can continue flooding the zone with progressive info so that we can educate the American populace. There are a lot of us trying to do this. We do it on the cheap while they have big actions. The right wing invests a whole lot. It's funny because I remember getting my first email where they offered me to switch sides, right? Would be paid royally. Wouldn't have to be really trying as hard as we do for money because you'd be paid. But couldn't do that. Could never go against my values. But you know, folks, like I said, our values are maintained by those of you who see the purpose and support our values. So please go ahead. The bang for the buck is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And for those that are supporting our newsletter, right, you get to read all, I repeat, all of my books online. And let me see if I can get to a page and show you what it looks like. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen real quickly. And let me see if I can get to a page and show you what it looks like. Oh, I got to first turn this mute off so I can get that right. All right, let's go ahead and do that again. If you get to our page, and you'll see the menu. If you go to if you're a paid subscriber and you click on my books, you get a list of all our books. That's for everybody to see. And once you click on any of the books, you get a chance to read it immediately. And there are all the chapters of the book that you can read all our books. So again, every single one of the book is being placed online for you to read at your leisure. And any new book that I put out there will be for all our paid subscribers to read online. And there are several other perks that we give you, including after we clean up all our podcasts, you get a chance, you get this window as well with all our podcasts as well, that you have full access to when you become a paid subscriber. So please consider, with all our podcasts as well, so please consider becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter. I got to get out of here, folks. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for your input. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right, I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.